Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. In my last video, I talked about how the government has sent out a notice to anybody who bought the Tavor X95 MSW version saying, we accidentally approved you buying a prohibited firearm and you're not allowed to own this, so you need to turn it in or destroy it for no compensation, no money. And this has got a lot of people very upset. Anybody who bought one of these, spent probably $2,000 on it, is pretty annoyed. And so one question a lot of people have had is, how do I fight the government on this one? How would I beat them in court? And this is a bit of a difficult question because it's a lot harder than you might think. One thing people have said is, listen, this gun is not full auto. So them saying it's a fully automatic firearm is just wrong. But you need to establish more than they're wrong. And it's actually quite an uphill battle that requires a lot of work. This is why I say it's important to have a lawyer if you want to bring this challenge, because there's a lot of difficult things you have to establish. So first of all, I think everyone agrees this gun is not currently, as was sold to people, full auto. The question then is it a converted full auto firearm? And converted is a term that is not super clear. It's open to some interpretation. And unfortunately, the current case law on terms of how these challenges go starts out with the presumption that the government is right. i.e., you are losing the instant you walk in that door. Even before you walk into the courtroom, you're already in the position of losing, and you need to convince the court otherwise. And the standard for convincing the court isn't just that the government got it wrong. You have to actually show not only that they got it wrong, but that it was unreasonable. This is a much more difficult standard. It's a fairly high burden, and it gets to be especially high when we start getting into interpretation questions. So what does it mean for something to be converted from a full auto firearm? Well, that's open to lots of interpretations, and they're going to give a fair bit of weight to whatever interpretation the government has chosen. You would have to show that it's an unreasonable interpretation. There's a further problem, which is that there's a particular case here, and it's a case I hate. I actually think that this was a badly decided decision. I think that it was wrongly decided, but we're stuck with it because it is a Supreme Court decision. And that is the case of the Queen, as it was at the time, and Hasselwander. So what this case was about was somebody owned a mini Uzi submachine gun. However, the mini Uzi submachine gun that he owned was not a full auto version. It was a semi-auto version. But the court actually found that this was still to be considered a full auto firearm, even though it was only capable of firing semi-auto. And that was because they determined that capable of firing in full auto meant not just something that was able to fire full auto at the time, but also something that was that could be quickly and readily converted to automatic status. That's the language they use there. They say, therefore, where a weapon can be quickly and readily converted to automatic status, that weapon falls within the definition of prohibited weapon. So why is this a problem? Well, the government is going to be sitting there with, with one of their experts, and they're going to claim that it might be able to. Now, lots of firearms can be converted to full auto with enough work. And in fact, a block of billet steel, like just a block of steel, could be converted into a fully automatic firearm with enough work. The question is, what is enough work? What is quickly and readily converted? Well, now we're into one of those unclear places where they're going to pick their meaning of it, and the court is going to agree with that or accept it so long as it's not unreasonable. Again, this is going to be a very difficult thing to establish. And in order to challenge this, not only will you need to be there to give your thoughts, but there's also going to be a need for expert evidence, gunsmiths, the company behind it. You might need somebody from there technical diagrams, drawings, all of these things. So lots of people have emailed me to say, listen, the government is wrong on this point. It's not a full auto firearm. Great. That's a good start to fighting them. There's a lot more to be established on that, and a lot of it is very, very difficult to determine. Now, this is especially true because at this point we have very little in terms of their position. What we have are these revocation notices that say, hey, listen, we think that this is an illegal firearm and here's why. But later, if this gets challenged, they would produce more information. And that more information hopefully would include some of the, the technical work that they did to determine this. Now, I haven't seen what that looks like yet. Maybe it's really good work. Maybe it's really shoddy work. I don't know. We'd have to see that, and that would have to be, put to different experts to see if they agree with it or disagree with it. We just don't know. Another question that I will answer here, because a lot of people have asked it, and I think it's a very relevant one, is they say, how does the government know who's got these things? Well, this particular model that they're concerned about, every one of them was sold as a restricted firearm. And a restricted firearm in Canada needs government approval to have it transferred to you. So every time I've bought a restricted firearm, the government has said, yep, we agree, you can own this legally and we have no issue with you owning it. They did that for every single one of these guns. And but it also means that they keep a record. They've got a registration. That's what, in fact, they're revoking here, is these registration certificates. And so because they've got it registered, they know every single one of these out there. So yeah, hopefully that stops certain comments that I've been seeing in my comment section. Guys, please don't suggest anything illegal in my comment section. I do not appreciate it. And you're effectively telling on yourself to the police. Real not a good idea. Anyway, so the real point I want to make here is that this is a really good reason why this needs to have a lawyer. And there's quite possibly the potential to group a bunch of these files together to run them as one group, and to say, like, listen, we'll have 100 people fight this together. The government may oppose that, but it's exactly the procedure that they asked for on the reverse thing with the order in council that's still on the go. So I think they'd have a hard time saying that it should be grouped together on those files, but not this one. Anyway, and that might be something that needs to proceed in various different provinces with different lawyers in different places. Again, if you are thinking of challenging this, you need to be very aware of how difficult this is, how expensive this is going to be. This is something that really should probably be spearheaded by one of the firearm groups in Canada, like the CCFR, Canada's National Firearms Association, or the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. All of these groups do good work in order to make sure that it gets done right. If these applications are brought without the proper evidentiary basis for them in order to challenge it, all that happens is you lose, and you generate precedent that is used to stop anyone else from challenging it, even though they have better evidence. So be very careful what you wish for in terms of fighting them on this. This is what winning will take, is a lot of very good evidence, and it's going to be hard if it's possible. So yeah, I wanted to do this video because people asked, how would I fight it? This is what would be needed. This is what you'd have to have. Anyway, as noted, I'm going to be live streaming tomorrow on Monday. There's a bunch of cases I want to talk about, but I expect there will be still people with questions about this one. So feel free to pop in and I'll try to answer any of those questions. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Lembas for the Elf, Canada's National Firearms Association, the CCFR, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. And at the $20 level, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Here's a Coin Legal Witcher, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, Vicky, and Dorky Dane. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.